There are characteristics of Wake Forest that should make you as an SMU fan pretty nervous, but the Mustangs should really beat this team.
You are Locked On SMU, your daily podcast on the SMU Mustangs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I will tell you why that is here in just a couple of moments. Welcome to Locked On SMU. It's a Thursday of Wake Forest week on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Welcome in, I'm Grayson Singleton. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. New customers can bet just $5, and if the bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. So download the FanDuel app today. Coming up on our show today, is this a game where SMU covers once again? We'll talk about that, so my betting people tap in for that second segment. Also, some injury updates provided by Rhett Lashley heading into the game this week. They're pretty positive this week, outside of the one that I've already mentioned in Wednesday's episode. So if you haven't watched Wednesday's episode, you'll be getting some fresh information for yourself that might be old to some other people. But we'll regurgitate part of that. But there's new information that we'll talk about on this episode today. Let's jump right into it and let's talk about Wake Forest. Probably the most confusing team on SMU's schedule to this point in time. And I only say to this point in time because we don't really know what the other teams are going to look like once we get there. But I am pretty confident to say that this could be the most Jekyll and Hyde team that SMU faces this year. So why do I say that? Well, we talked about SMU's dicey quarterback situation in yesterday's episode. We're not going to go back through all of that. Wake Forest does some very interesting things well, especially running the football. They average 5 yards a carry, which is usually a benchmark for being pretty good running the football. So they do that well. They've got a good player in terms of rushing the passer in defensive end Langston Hardy, who already has 4.5 sacks on the year. So he's a pretty good player. Running back's pretty good player. They've got another receiver who's a big play threat in the passing game that SMU secondary is really going to have to keep the top on. Chris Barnes, 17.8 yards per catch and 3 touchdowns on the year. You're going to have to keep a lid on him. He's a good player. But if you just look at the raw numbers and stuff like that, you think, Wake Forest looks like a 4-2 team. Looks like a pretty good 4-2 team. Here's the thing, and I need you guys to understand how I'm thinking about this. When there are something that my eyes tell me is wrong, and it correlates with a poor schedule, that usually doesn't bode well for you being an actually good team. So what am I talking about here? Let's break it down. So I told you yesterday about Wake Forest's dicey quarterback situation. And, as a team, they're completing 57% of their passes. Not good. Not good. But they run the ball well. 5 yards carry. Pretty good. Total yardage, they're in the top quarter of the ACC. Total defense ain't that bad. So what's the trepidation here? And I went and looked at their strength of schedule. Did you know Wake Forest's strength of schedule is the second worst in the ACC? Only Cal has played a worse schedule in the ACC than Wake Forest. By the way, where does Wake Forest rank in terms of strength of schedule? I will tell you, 109th in the FBS. Like, they've played an awful schedule. Like, they haven't played, I don't think, outside of Georgia Tech, they have not played one team that's good. Okay? Then you might say, okay, well, what about NC State? Well, NC State, they've played a much tougher schedule, and NC State is also 4-3, with losses to Duke, Virginia Tech, and a blowout loss to Notre Dame. They hung with Virginia, and their resume seems pretty eerily similar to Wake Forest in the fact that we kind of kept a FCS team in the game with us. Well, East Carolina isn't an FCS team, but we kept a lower tier program in the game with us, played really close to a good program, and then have lost to every other good team and blew out an FCS program, which they blew out Campbell. So they're kind of similar in that vein. But so Wake Forest, 109th in terms of strength of schedule. In terms of strength of record, which I think holds more weight in this argument that I'm making here, they are 57th in the country. So not a good strength of schedule. The strength of record isn't very good. And my eyes are telling me, before I look at all that, there's something I don't like here. Their quarterback, Robbie Ashford, has thrown for almost as many interceptions as his team has takeaways. I believe they have 6 takeaways on the season, interceptions and fumble recoveries combined, 3 interceptions and 3 fumbles recovered. 6 takeaways. Robbie Ashford has thrown 4 picks. This does not sound like a recipe to beating good teams if you're Wake Forest. So just what my eyes are telling me here, it just doesn't tell me that this is a good team, regardless of the fact that they're one of the best teams in the ACC when it comes to running the football, regardless of the fact that they can put up points, regardless of the fact that they're in the top quarter of the conference in moving the ball. Something doesn't add up. And the strength of schedule and strength of record is the determining factor to me here. Is that they have looked good at times against really bad opposition, against some really bad teams. And somehow they had one game where they hung with and almost beat Georgia Tech, the number 7 team in the country now. I'm going to take the bulk of that resume. Now, how does that pertain to SMU? And I think it pertains well to SMU because this has been described as a trap game. And even I myself have said this looks like the quintessential trap game. But except I don't think this Wake Forest team is that good. I think SMU, and this is probably not the best mindset to have if you're the players and coaching staff, which is why I'm in the media and I can say this. I don't think SMU needs to play its A-plus game to win this game. As long as they are physically whole, and make some plays, I do not think Wake Forest can beat this team unless SMU just plays its absolute worst game. Its absolute worst game. The one area that I see Wake Forest potentially getting SMU is if Robbie Alford, just tripped up on his name right there. Robbie Ashford. If Robbie Ashford is able to take the top off of SMU's defense, which kind of a concern. Like, let's be fair, that's kind of a concern. But that's the only way I see it. Because the quarterbacking is inefficient. I don't know how good their run game is going to be against a team that's really good at stopping the run. I just don't see, with a pass rush like SMU's, with an offense like SMU's, I don't see how a quarterback, regardless of if it's Robbie Ashford or Deshaun Purdy, I don't see how a quarterback that completes less than 60% of his passes is going to be able to keep up with SMU. I just don't. And you can say, well, they're on the road. Yes, they're on the road, second week in a row on the Atlantic coast. But Wake Forest is not that intimidating of an environment to play against. Like, let's not skip over that fact. So I don't think SMU needs to play its A-plus game to come out of here with a win. I really don't. I don't think SMU has to play its A-plus game to cover the 3.5 spread, which is what it was at when I looked at it yesterday, and we're going to talk about that in just a second. But my eyes are telling me Wake Forest isn't very good. The numbers are telling me, hey, this is a productive team. The strength of record and strength of resume says, yeah, but look at who it's against. That's all I need to know. I see one thing, numbers tell me another. The teams they've played against, figure it out. And I'm going to go with the bulk of the resume and say that my eyes aren't deceiving me here. They're a team that can run the football and move people. I think that's going to travel. 5 yards a carry is 5 yards a carry. That's good. That is damn good. I think they'll be able to do that. And I think they're going to try to establish that and test if SMU is physically up for the challenge, given the part of the schedule where this game falls. But if this has to go into third down and long, behind the change, off script, off schedule, hey, Robbie Ashford, excuse me, I don't know why I keep butchering that. Hey, Robbie Ashford or Deshaun Purdy, go make a play for us. No, I don't see Wake Forest beating this SMU team. I just don't. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Let me know on Twitter. Just hit me up wherever. Let me know what you think. I think this could be a trap game, but I would be more inclined that this be like an trap game if Wake Forest was better. And I just quite frankly don't think they are. Coming up next, can SMU cover this game? They've been really bad against the spread up until this point. Are they better now, and will they continue that? We'll talk about that on the other side. Gamblers, come back with me on Locked On SMU. One of the tools that helps make a difference for businesses owners is Quo, formerly OpenPhone. It's the same great business phone system you've heard me talk about before, but just with a new name. And here's why it matters. Every missed call is money left on the table. When every customer conversation counts, you need a phone system that keeps you connected 24/7. Quo is the #1 business phone system that streamlines customer communications. It works right through an app on your phone or your computer, so no more carrying 2 phones or relying on landline. Hey, whether you're a solo operator juggling everything or if you're part of a larger team, Quo makes it easy to stay responsive and professional, and their built-in AI agent is a game changer. It can answer after-hour calls, capture leads, and keep business moving even when you're off the clock. So see why 90,000 businesses trust Quo, formerly OpenPhone, today. Get started free and get 20% off your first 6 months at quo.com/lockedoncollege. That's Quo, QUO.com/lockedoncollege. You can even keep your existing number for free. And Quo with Quo. No missed calls, no missed customers. We're also brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Hey, the NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer that you do not want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if the bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. That's right. Just pick a bet, put down 5, and if you win, you get 300 more to play around with in FanDuel app. I love how FanDuel gives me so many ways to play. I've built parlays, tried the player props, and even I follow the live lines during the game in case I want to hop in if there's something I feel really good about. Whether you're a casual fan or just love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. So will SMU, this is funny coming off of that ad. Great segue. If FanDuel, or if SMU, which by the way, on FanDuel, let me look at what SMU's line is on FanDuel right now, since we're talking about this. SMU's line on FanDuel is, if this will load, -2.5. This is great. Okay, so it was at -3.5 yesterday. It is moving in favor of Wake Forest. This is curious. Okay, so SMU has been notoriously bad against the spread. Just bad the last couple of years. However, they're on a 2-game winning streak against the spread, covered against Syracuse and covered against Stanford. So you're off to a good start in the part of the season, by the way, where it matters the most. You're in conference play. So 2-0 against the spread in ACC play. Do I believe SMU can cover a 2.5-point spread? That's what it's at our friends at FanDuel. Yes, I do. 100%. 100%. I don't think this game is within a field goal. All right. 3.5. Okay. We're starting to see a little bit more, but here's what the line is telling you. And I think there's a lot of overplaced confidence in Wake Forest because that's what the line's telling you, by the way. The line moving from 3.5 to 2.5 over the course of the last 36 hours is telling you that there's a lot of money that's been coming on with in favor of Wake Forest. That's what that line's going to tell you. So I think there's a lot of misplaced confidence in Wake Forest because, again, erratic quarterbacks. This is the second best team you've played. Haven't played that good of a schedule. I just don't see it with the Demon Deacons. Not this year. And now you're in a situation where you've got advantage quarterback. You probably have the advantage offensive line and running game. Again, SMU's played a much tougher schedule than Wake Forest has. You have the advantage defensively in terms of sacks. You have the advantage defensively in terms of takeaways. And I just think in terms of talent, and I think you've got advantage coaching. Okay? The only thing that can trip up SMU right now, the only thing is second weekend in a row on the East Coast. That's the only thing I think can trip them up. because Kevin Jennings is going to play, and we're going to talk about what Rhett Lashley had to say about Kevin Jennings later on, and to close up the show. Kevin Jennings is going to play. Your whole complement of receivers is ready to go. The whole offensive line is ready to go. No major injuries on defense. So this should be a good cover game. If I'm putting in a parlay, SMU to cover this 2.5, I think is a really good play here. Because SMU stops the run very well. That is what Wake Forest does exceptionally well. Wake Forest does exceptionally well at that. Now, if SMU can be had defensively, there would be Wake Forest taking advantage of them over the top. But if SMU succeeds in keeping a lid on the Wake Forest big play game, then Wake Forest is probably cooked. Because I just don't see them moving the ball down the field time and time and time again. And the teams that have kept it close with SMU are teams that take the football away, right? And SMU just doesn't do that. Kevin Jennings had blunders against Baylor. Kevin Jennings had blunders against TCU, right? When Kevin Jennings plays good football and doesn't give the ball away, what happens? What happens? They win pretty comfortably. Syracuse and Stanford are really good examples of that. Okay, so everywhere you turn, yes, it's on the road, and generally that's going to swing it in the home team's favor, but everywhere you turn, there is advantage SMU. Now, I'm not saying Wake Forest is a pushover. I do not. But I do think SMU is the decided better team. And if you're asking me if somebody's the decided better team, which I believe the Mustangs are, I believe they can cover the 2.5, which means the Mustangs would then go to 3-0 against the spread. Now, there is precedent for this, and I'm going to go back real fast here because I just thought of this. I'm going to go back to the Duke game a season ago because that was the game last year. If you remember, they were second weekend in a row in conference play on the East Coast they were second weekend in a row just on the road, period, because they had been on the West Coast playing Stanford the week before, and then they came to Duke cross country, no bye week in between, and only won by 1 point. That line, I believe, closed at, if I'm trying to see, that line closed at 11.5 in favor of SMU, and clearly they didn't come close to covering that, okay? So I do think Vegas is taking that into regard, that this game could be a lot closer than it needs to be or than what we would ordinarily think it should be because of the schedule. And that would be fair. But let me ask you this. I'm going to ask you this. Is there anything in Wake Forest, and feel free to answer in dissent of what I've said, is there anything for Wake Forest that makes you think Robbie Ashford can beat this SMU team? And my answer to that question is a decided no. And with the line creeping down now at 2.5, even though there are factors that would make it pretty reasonable to assert that Vegas would do this, is there any way that this game is within a field goal? And to me, the answer is no. Even if it's a 6-point game. Even if it's a 6-point game. And remember, the crux of this segment is not SMU's going to blow Wake Forest out. The crux of this segment is to help you guys win some money. And the line that Vegas has it at is 2.5. So all you need to do is have SMU win this game 23-20 or even 3-0, and you've won you some money. That's what we're looking at. That's the frame of reference we're looking at this segment through. And I just don't see a world in which this is a field goal game. With the way that SMU can defend what Wake Forest does well, with the way that Wake Forest has not really done what keeps a lot of teams in games with SMU, and that is take the football away, I just don't see it. I don't see it. Especially, by the way, because SMU last week got off to a really good start against Clemson. We're leading at halftime. I don't like a quarterback that completes less than 65% of his passes playing from behind. Like, I just don't. I mean, you're telling me a quarterback who completes 59% of his passes for 2 touchdowns and 4 picks. You like that dude playing from behind? I don't. I do not. Not one bit. And even if it's Deshaun Purdy, by the way, who hasn't thrown a pick, he too has a pretty low completion percentage. So mediocre quarterbacks. SMU did a good job getting off to a good start last week. I expect them to do the same this week. Talking about mediocre quarterbacks now playing from behind, I just don't see it. I don't see a way that this game is within a field goal. So I am taking that SMU -2.5. That's what they are at our friends at FanDuel. And I think SMU goes to 3-0 against the spread in conference play. That's my take. That's my pick on that. Coming up next, let's close this thing out talking about some injuries because Rhett Lashley gave us an update the other day. Keep it here on Locked On SMU. We're brought to you today by Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, with more IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus awards than anyone else. You can feel the Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to available Nappa leather upholstery. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but ordinary, from smooth handling to the intuitive controls, and you know that all-wheel drive comes standard in every crossover SUV, so you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players, we sweat every detail, and when you make every move count, impossible just becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. Let's close things up talking about some injuries. And if you missed yesterday's episode, I will say it again. Justin Medlock is going to be out for a couple of weeks. He's going to be out for a couple of weeks. He had a procedure done, according to Coach Lashley. So that's why yesterday when we talked about the linebacker core being a little bit, short of depth, that's where that comes from. There was only 4 guys in terms of middle linebacker and weak side linebacker that were listed. The 4, Brandon Booker, Alex Kilgore, Brandon Maizano, and Zakai Barker. Okay, so Mark Iannaccio is somebody that you could look to see some more situational snaps for in this game against Wake Forest. But Rhett Lashley talked about some injuries, and naturally we had to start with the quarterback because Kevin Jennings hasn't been healthy for a while. And this is what he said. Quote, "He's fine. I think the fact that he was able to play and that shows you he should be fine. It's sore, but he was a full participant in practice today. That was Tuesday. He wasn't limited in anything." Here's the interesting part. I do not think it's as bad as it was coming out of the Baylor game. That was the worst week because he really didn't practice that week. He's just got an ankle that about every time he gets healthy, he gets re-rolled. I think he's learning how to kind of push and play through it, so we'll see. Hopefully he feels great on Saturday, but I fully expect him to be ready to go. And there you go. As long as it's not as bad as Baylor, we can be okay. Now he's going to have the thing wrapped. He probably will be playing through some discomfort. That's all fair and true, fine and true. But if it was not as bad, because coming out of that Baylor game, because we know he gutted it through that game. And even the TCU game, it got re-rolled and it didn't look great either. Both of those games. So then that's why we really needed the bye week when the bye week got here. So as long as it's not that bad, we should be okay. Also, one thing you got to learn about athletes, they know how to play through sprained ankles. Athletes, as long as it's not twice the size it should be, athletes are very, very capable and very, very used to playing through sprained ankles. So pain tolerance, will be a thing, but I think Kevin Jennings is going to be fine, and Coach Lashley thinks so too. The fact that he's practicing, by the way, is a really good sign. So full participant in practice on Tuesday. I think we're going to see a good version of Kevin Jennings this week. PJ Williams is certainly, we mentioned this yesterday, he is listed as the starting right tackle. He got, kind of banged up in the game against Clemson. Coach Lashley said, I think PJ was fine. He missed a play or two, came back in the game. We know about Kevin Jennings, and he also gave an update on Smoke Robinson. He was better Monday and Tuesday, so we're optimistic that he'll be able to give us something this weekend because he really hasn't been able to the last 2 weekends. And that's critical because we talked about trying not to see as much Speedy Nettles. I had to try to phrase that delicately there. But trying not to see a whole lot of speedy Nettles. And if Smoke is able to give you a lot more snaps, I think that bodes well for SMU, especially in a game, by the way, where Wake Forest is going to try to generate the big play, because that's how they can be the most effective offensively. So having your whole slew of corners back there and them actually being able to give you something is going to be a big upgrade. By the way, I want to amend this. SMU is 2-1 against the spread in ACC play. I just realized that. They did not cover the spread against Syracuse. The Orange got a backdoor cover in that game, but they have won the last two. So they are looking for 3 in a row against the spread. They're just not undefeated in conference play. So they're looking to go to 3-1 against the spread this week. Just wanted to amend that. Back to the injuries. This was interesting to me. Brandon Maizano popped up in a red jersey, which is the no contact jersey for SMU, in practice this week. So that'll be something to keep an eye on as well. Not sure exactly what the injury is, but he was some level of limited. So here's the thing that you have to get to when it comes to SMU. And here's my big takeaway from that after giving you all the information. This team is about as healthy as you can hope it to be. I mean, there could be a lot worse. You could be dealing with a quarterback with a thumb injury or any kind of hand injury. You could be dealing with defensive players at really, really key positions in really key roles, missing significant time. You're not doing that. You got your dude who had a catastrophic injury last year, that being RJ Maryland. He's back and getting better. Jordan Hudson, banged up at the beginning of the year. You got him back and ready to go. So, all in all, by the way, you are healthy across the offensive line. Because I can tell you this. There's another team in the SEC that I cover for my day job, that being the Oklahoma Sooners, who are not. And it's caused problems. Okay? So, SMU, in terms of your injury situation, you are feeling excellent. You're feeling good. Quarterback's a little banged up. Receivers got a big elbow brace on. Okay, cool. Is that the extent of it? Outside of Justin Medlock, who is a backup linebacker. I mean, that's pretty much the extent of your worries. And we're now heading down the stretch of the season where health and attrition are going to play a vital role into who is going to qualify for conference championships and those 12 postseason spots, playoff spots. You got to think about that. So SMU is in a really good spot with the fact that their injury reports are pretty short. They're pretty short and they're pretty favorable, aside from one or two things, especially if they're able to get a decent amount out of Smoke Robinson this week. You're feeling really good, because keep this in mind. You just played a team with a backup quarterback. You could possibly play a team this week with a backup quarterback. You are doing good if you're SMU. Keep Kevin Jennings upright. Try like hell not to have the ankle re-rolled again. And let's see if we can get back to Dallas with everybody in one piece after a brutal 2-week road stretch on the East Coast. That'll do it for Locked On SMU here today. We got one more show before we watch the Mustangs take on the Demon Deacons of Wake Forest on Saturday at 11 a.m. Central Time. Hey, be sure to check out Locked On ACC, our conference show, hosted by Kenton Gibbs and Alex Dono, as they take you through all the storylines and intrigue of the most interesting conference in the country, with all the rivalries, championships, and whatnot. So catch Locked On ACC on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. My name is Grayson Singleton. Thanks for making us your first listen of the day. We'll see you tomorrow, everybody. One more show before SMU and Wake Forest. Take care.